Some weapons are complex, they have all sorts of interesting mechanics that can lead to very interesting builds. However, on the other side of the spectrum you have weapons such as the Tysis, which are pretty clear cut and dry and don't require a whole lot of thinking when it comes to building them. And today we're going to be diving deeper into this Mastery Rank 9 secondary weapon. As always, my name is Leyzar and I have a couple of builds for you guys. Something cheap and affordable, something anybody can build, but we also have a quote-unquote endgame setup with a Riven. That being said though, please keep in mind that my builds and guides follow a new player friendly approach, simply because there's a lot of info here and I want anybody watching to understand how the weapon functions and how it should be built. So if you're a veteran of the game and you already know most of this stuff, please bear with me. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the Tysis. Let's begin by having a look at how the weapon behaves without any mods equipped, and for that I'm simply going to be taking a couple of free shots. The Tysis is a projectile based secondary semi-weapon. As you can see, it fires these little darts. I guess you can't really make out the little darts, but upon impact it kind of leaves this trail of energy behind, and it looks like the projectile detonates upon impact, but all of that is simply visual effects. It doesn't have an actual damaging effect or an AoE effect to it. And that's kind of it. What's worth noting here is that the recoil is anything but small. Take a look at this. And even at full fire rate, this one doesn't stabilize, so it keeps bouncing around all over the place, and that is a bit of an issue. But let's jump into stats to see precisely what we're dealing with. Mod capacity is going to be 60 out of 60, and if your Tysis has only 30 out of 30, jump into actions and install the Arcane catalyst. This one can be found from alerts, invasions, or if you're lucky from the daily sortie, and you can also pay 20 plat to have one installed. After dev streams, usually keep an eye out for invasions and alerts because they do kind of pop up then. My weapon has been Forma a total of 6 times because I need to find something else to do in my free time, but for the weapon build I'm recommending you guys, free Forma should cover it. Simply add 2 V symbols and a dash. The accuracy for the Tysis is gonna be 100 with a critical chance of 3%, crit multi 1.5. Now it's fair to say that you can't really do anything when it comes to the crit chance unless a bonus additive after effects such as Arcane Avenger or perhaps Harrow or a Kavat buff. That crit multi 1.5x isn't a lot, but if you want to go with the bonus additive effects, you can go for something like Target Cracker, which will add raise the multi to 3.2x. The fire rate is 2.5, a magazine of 11, noise alarming, 1.2 second reload, so really quick, and a Riven disposition of 5 out of 5, as the weapon is not very popular. Status chance, however, is sky high at 50%, and that means that with just 2 60/60 mods, you're gonna be able to get this one to a true 100% status chance. Trigger semi and corrosive damage by default. Now I'm partial to corrosive. I don't really build my weapons unless it's for taking out heavy duty targets, because everything else, well, can be taken out with any decent build, let's be honest here, outside of endurance runs and all whatnot. Now that corrosive damage on the weapon you should treat as a very last mod combination somewhere around here, because if I was to add electricity with convulsion, for example, it doesn't get combined directly into the default corrosive. If you want to combine it, if you want to increase the corrosive value, then you're gonna have to add the elemental combo within the weapon, like so. So bear that one in mind. Now let's switch to a standard build. We got, of course, mandatory mods with Hornet Strike, Barrel Diffusion, Lethal Torrent, and we also have 2 of the 90 mods making even more corrosive on the weapon with Pathogen Rounds, Convulsion, 2 60/60 mods which increases the status chance to 100%, true status chance with Jolt, Pistol Pestilence, and a bit more damage with Auger Pact. Now Auger Pact I'm gonna leave up to you guys. You can stick into the last mod slot something different. For example, you can go with Seeker, 2.1 meters worth of punch through. That means that the projectiles will be going through your initial target and keep traveling. Now I treat punch through as a form of AoE, and it can be a fantastic DPS increase. Now a build such as this, and the Tysis in general, should be built depending on your own circumstances. If crit can't really be taken into account, then you gotta know exactly where are you going and who are you fighting. For example, if I was fighting Corpus, I would have built Gas or just Toxin and just dealt with them like that, so I can bypass their shields and deal damage to their health. When it comes to the infested, I would simply build AoE weapons into heat. I wouldn't take a single target damage weapon such as the Tysis versus the infested, but there you go. And if I knew that my targets, for example, were, I don't know, alloy armor Grenier, then I would definitely build radiation. I built corrosive on most of my weapons simply because the toughest targets in Warframe are Grenier. Everything else seems to be dying from, well, not that much effort, so bear that one in mind. Now let's test the weapon out like this and see how it performs. It's gonna be level 120 enemies, and I got corrupted heavy gunners, and I also got a couple of guys from Fortuna, just for lols and kicks. Now, I was fully expecting this weapon to fully strip the armor of the enemies way before they would actually die, but much to my surprise, due to the sheer damage the weapon has, as you can see, it doesn't fully strip unless it's close to the end. At least for level 120. Of course, depending on the level of the enemies, this will change. And this would be rapid fire with the default recoil on the weapon. As you can see, kind of the last shot overstrips just a little bit. If you are running into such issues with any weapon, but specifically the Tysis in this case, then I would simply add a bit of heat to the weapon. That would reduce the number of corrosive procs. And in case you are overstripping, then that heat will be dealing extra damage. In the case of corrupted heavy gunners, as all that will be left is clone flesh, which does take extra damage from heat, so bear that one in mind. For an MR9 weapon, this is not bad. I mean, take a look, it does jump through high level enemies with relative ease, but we do gotta keep in mind it's a projectile based weapon, so a little bit of leading your target will be required. Also, the speed of the projectile from the Tysis, those little darts, I wouldn't call the speed very quick, so there is that to take into account. As you can see, the corpus are non-threat, even though my weapon is not built to fight them. It's not gas or toxin or anything like that. But, of course, them being corpus, they do take a bit more damage. So bear that one in mind. Alright, that's it for a standard build, and once again, if you're overstripping, I would simply add heat. What you can do with the Tysis also is have the following. You can have the default corrosive, of course, you can't really get rid of that one, and you can build the elemental combo of viral and also add some heat to the weapon. And if you want to do something like that, you just simply get rid of jolt, which can be a bit expensive and difficult to obtain, and you can just go for the 60-60 mod for cold. Or perhaps you want to leave the status chance as it is right now at 98.9%. I mean, come on, what's the big difference, right? And just go for another 90 mod, and like that I would have electricity, viral, and corrosive on the weapon. We can try it like this, but from my point of view, I would rather have heat instead of the electricity. As a standalone element, if you will, I would always go for heat. So we can have heat, viral, corrosive, and let's test the weapon out like this. You can even drop the 90 mod, sure, why the hell not? The beauty about the Tysis is that it's a very simple weapon, so you can't really go wrong with the build. If you just simply want to add a whole lot of damage to it, you can't really go wrong with something like that. As you can see, because the weapon is not full-blown corrosive anymore, I'm having a much harder time when it comes to these heavily armored targets. The corpus, however, well, they're corpus, so what exactly do you expect? The corpus are a problem not because they are hard to kill, because they have crowd controlling abilities, they're a bit more agile, a bit more mobile, and they do deal a whole lot of damage. So dealing with them, usually I found it most easiest simply to crowd control the crap out of them and just take them out with a couple of shots. And that's pretty much it when it comes to performance that you can expect out of the Tysis with a base build. What we can do next is get a Riven, 5 out of 5 dispo, so Rivens will be quite potent, and currently they're not very expensive. I mean, you can get a unrolled Tysis Riven for about 20, maybe 30 plat, something along those lines. And I got this one for about 100 plats. It has multi-shot toxin and a negative of weapon recoil. I'll be honest here, and you will see that recoil does hurt my soul quite badly, but it was only 100 plat, so I went for it after about 4 to 5 hours of searching. Thank you very much, mate, I appreciate it. So the ideal Tysis Riven, from my point of view, considering that the critical chances were so low, I would go for multi-shot damage and a harmless negative. Weapon recoil, however, is not a harmless negative, so bear that one in mind. Once again, it's a corrosive based build. Made versus corrupted heavy gunners and made versus Grenier in general. So let's see what the weapon can do. Oh yeah, that is a lot of damage, and I'm able to jump through these high level targets like a hot knife through butter. Honestly, I wasn't expecting the Tysis to perform as well as it does. I was fully expecting to shoot a target till I was blue in the face, then it to overstrip like all hell. But that does not happen. Honestly, it does pack one hell of a punch. The only thing I can say, let's say bad about the weapon, well, let's call it a negative. The recoil, as you can see, is quite jumpy, especially with the Riven, of course. And also, the projectiles travel kinda slowly, so you might have trouble landing precise shots. This not being a critical weapon, going for headshots is not as important as a crit weapon, so bear that one in mind. Still one more thing which I wanna do, bump up everything with Warframe buffs, and for that I could be using Chroma, because he is the... What the hell happened to the helmet? In any case, he is the damage master, but I prefer Lady Mirage. Oh god, I did it again. Mirage Prime, because she's a lot easier on the eyes, and I do enjoy playing this Warframe quite a lot. Now, some of you guys asked for this fashion, guys. These are all standard colors from Classic or Classic Saturated, and you can go for a look such as this. I mean, you can't really argue with something like that now, can you? Now let's jump into her buffs and see exactly what she will provide. What we can do is go for Pistol Lamp, which will get you 27% extra damage to secondary weapons. However, the benefit this one provides is rather negligible. 27% isn't that big of a deal, but it is an aura, so therefore it is stackable times 4, and everybody in your party will be receiving this benefit. Arcanes, however, are a lot more impactful. Arcane Precision with 120% extra damage to secondary weapons. On headshot, 80% chance. Fantastic Arcane. I believe from the trade chat this one goes for about 80-ish plat. As for your second Arcane, what you can go for is Awakening. This one is cheap, easy to farm, etc. 100% damage to pistols, 40% chance on reload, however. This one is not entirely reliable. What I would say would be an ideal choice would be Arcane Avenger, as this one will get you a 40% critical chance boost bonus additive after, so therefore your Tysis will be going from 3% to 33%, so you will be getting some crits out of it. That default crit multi at 1.5x is not exactly fantastic, but this is the setup we're gonna be going for. And of course we will unpause the targets like so. They're kind of gonna fight each other, but eventually they will have to turn their attention to me. Activate Mirage's free ability for a massive damage increase, as well as her lovely clones. And if I go to town on these guys, take a look. It just chomps through everything. It is fantastic, but I do have a massive damage increase from Mirage, and her clones are dealing a bit of damage as well. Now don't get me wrong, not fantastic damage, but still the clones do help, and they help with damage mitigation as well. The Tysis surprised me. I didn't expect it to pack this great of a punch, but I fully recommend the weapon. If you are kind of like me, okay, I like it because it deals corrosive based damage, and I do like projectile based weapons that can stick my enemies to walls, because well, let's not talk about that, but as you can see, the Tysis can pack one hell of a punch. And that's pretty much it for the review. As always, my name has been Leyzar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. If you have any feedback for me, then by all means leave it in the comment section down below. Also in the comment section down below if you want to request a specific weapon review. Now I can't exactly promise you that it'll be done by next time or even within a week, as these things take a bit of time, but I will be reading through each and every comment. You can also find me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. But until next time, my friends, bye bye. Bastardo, why'd you have to ruin my freaking